Welcome to the Horsemanship Breakthroughs Podcast. I'm your host, Amalia Dempsey. If you believe in kind horsemanship, a holistic approach to horse care and training, and a world where both horse and rider thrive and enjoy the journey, you're in the right place. Here I share insights from my own horsemanship journey and the wisdom of horse people from around the world to improve horse and human relationships, promote ethical training practices, and build deeper connections with our horses. Together, we explore training methods with an open mind, always striving to do what's best for the horse. This podcast is about lifelong learning, questioning the norm, and embracing the journey of growing alongside our horses. Be sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode, and visit amaliadempsey.com for more resources to elevate your riding and horsemanship. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Welcome back to the Horsemanship Breakthroughs Podcast. My name's Amalia Dempsey, and in today's episode, I'm going to go over 12 ways you can have a more relaxed session with your horse. Now, relaxation to me is one of the most important things in training horses. It's one of the fundamentals of horsemanship. For me, the fundamentals are connection, calm confidence, and communication. And I put relaxation under the banner of calm confidence because I don't just want a horse that's completely kind of zonked out. I still want them to be engaged and confident, but have this sense of calm in them as well. But a lot of people do struggle with getting that relaxation and getting that calmness to begin with. And relaxation is so important because horses and people learn better when they are relaxed. So we can't really expect to make good progress with our horses if they're not already in that calm, relaxed state. Plus, when your horse is relaxed, it feels better and it's more fun for both of you. Like, I'm sure there's no rider out there that wants, or there probably is some riders out there with an adrenaline, who get a kick out of adrenaline, who want to ride horses that are tense. But I would say most riders would prefer to have a horse who's calm and relaxed, rather than have a horse who's really tense and worried in their session. Having relaxation is important because it keeps you safe. In terms of, we know that when horses are not relaxed, they're more unpredictable, they're more likely to spook, to shy, to bolt, to show or display all these what we would consider problem behaviors that can be dangerous for humans. So it's safer when your horse is in a more relaxed state of mind. Relaxation is also important for athletic maneuvers and performance riding because excess tension affects the whole body, and we really need horses to start off from a calm, confident, relaxed state in order to be able to perform athletically in a way that is healthy for them. And relaxation is important because it helps build your relationship with your horse. Imagine being around someone where you're like always tense and worried and scared. You're probably not going to have a good association with that person. Whereas if you can be relaxed and just be yourself and be calm and be chill around someone, you're more likely to develop a better relationship with that person. So that's why relaxation is important, and I recognize that people really do struggle with having a relaxed session. So in today's episode, I'm going to go over 12 ways that you can have a more relaxed session with your horse. This morning, I actually had a great session with my horses, and this is what sparked the idea for me because I just felt the whole undertone, like the undercurrent of the whole session was this calm confidence, relaxation, and I realized that there's certain things that I personally do to make that happen. It doesn't happen by accident, right? I could have easily set things up to be not as calm. And so I really want to share these 12 things that I personally do in the hope that they might also help you have more relaxed sessions with your horse. Number 1 is have your session where your horse feels safe. So often people kind of start off already on the wrong foot, so to speak, when they expect their horses to feel calm and relaxed in an environment where they simply don't, right? Most horses will feel pretty calm and relaxed in their herd, in their paddock, in the environment in which they live. And it's when we pull them away from that, away from their herd, away from that familiar environment, where their tension can start to rise. Now, that doesn't mean you can never do that, but it means that you need to recognize where they feel safe and where they don't, and help them feel more safe in environments where they don't currently. It might also mean that you do sessions in the paddock to begin with, so that you can build some connection, build some communication in a place where the horse already feels safe, so that then you can bring that communication with you when you do eventually take them away from that safe place. It might also mean that if you do want to take them away from that safe space sooner, or like before you think they're ready to move away from there by themselves, that you take other horses with you, or there's other horses at the other end wherever you're taking them, so that they don't feel like they're so alone. So if you were to take, let's say you've got 3 horses in together, if you take them all, and perhaps you have the help of other people to take all the horses to a different location on the property, or wherever you're wanting to have your work session, your play session, or your riding with your horse, that you're bringing those other familiar horses with you, so that the horse feels like there's that sense of familiarity around them. And personally, this is what I really like to do. I like to have all my horses up together, and then it's also for convenience, because then I can play with one after the other. But I just find that it really helps all of them just be a little bit more chill. Now, that doesn't mean I can't or won't work with them individually. I certainly do, but it's my preference to have everyone kind of close by. If you do want to take your horse away from the other horses to a separate area, make sure that you put in the appropriate work to help your horse feel safe about that. I did do an episode earlier on in season 1 about separation anxiety, and I go through a little bit of a process on how to approach that. So if you're interested in that, you can go back to that episode. But in a nutshell, one of the great techniques you can use is approach and retreat. So approaching towards the area that the horse finds less safe, and then when you notice them feel a little uncomfortable, you retreat back to where they do feel safe, and then you just ebb and flow through approach and retreat until gradually they feel like they're able to tolerate that distance between their safe space, and their safe space expands, so they don't actually feel like they are moving towards a scary space. But in a nutshell, playing with your horse or having your session with your horse in a space where they already feel relaxed and safe is going to help you have a more relaxed session with your horse. Number 2 is notice your horse's thresholds. So I look at thresholds as the moment when your horse first shows you that they're worried about something, right? And it might be subtle. It might just be them kind of slowing down. It might be a slight head raise. It might be like the ears pricking forwards quite abruptly. Just little signs that your horse is going, oh, actually, I'm not really sure about that. And it's important to notice those thresholds and have a plan or some strategies up your sleeve to know what to do when those thresholds, when you inevitably hit those thresholds. Now, I talk about having a confidence and relaxation toolkit. This is something that I go through in module 3 of Horsemanship Fundamentals Academy. And I think it's really important to be able to draw from a variety of techniques, depending on the horse, depending on the situation, that you can use to help your horse become confident and relaxed with whatever it is that you are trying to work through. And I think it's also important for you to know what you're doing, why you're applying it, and why it's working, so that then that way you kind of have a blueprint to go back to. You're not just winging it. You're not just thinking, well, I don't know how that worked, but it did. And I think the sooner that you apply these techniques, in terms of the sooner you use them when your horse first shows you that they're worried, the more success that you're going to have with those confidence and relaxation techniques, because it's a little easier to deal with a drop of tension versus like a whole glass of tension. So I think it's really important to notice these thresholds, and the more you become aware of it, the better you become at picking them up and kind of nipping them in the bud when they first show up. And this just avoids that compound effect of lots of little stresses, or what's otherwise known as trigger stacking, so that you can help the horse release that tension that has built up, and then you can go on with your session. So it's not building up over time. A little bit of tension arises, it gets released, and you can carry on in a relaxed state. One little tip that I have here is often horses will, always horses are aware of their environment, but often something might pique their interest in the distance where they feel like they've got to stop, they've got to look at it, and they've kind of ignored you, or you're no longer important in that moment. They're so focused on whatever it is in the distance. And there's a lot of different advice around what to do in these moments. Some horsemanship trainers, and they have their reasons, will say, don't allow them to look, get them to refocus, ask them to do some groundwork exercises. And this is a technique called overshadowing, which is one of the techniques in the confidence and relaxation toolkit. However, one thing that I found works really well with my horses, again, depending on the context, depending on the day, depending on the situation, is actually checking out what they're worried about. And this is something that I learned or got the idea from Andrea Wadey and Elsa Sinclair in the documentary Taming Wild. And basically they will stand like in between the horse and whatever it is that they're looking at, and genuinely try and suss out what it is that they're worried about. Like, I try and embody the thought of, well, my horse might be right. There might actually be a predator in the distance, and I need to make sure that there's not. And if there is, I need to do something about it. Because for all we know, they might be right. There might be a fox there, or a snake, or something coming towards us. We don't know. I mean, usually there's not, but I think we owe it to our horses to show them that we've noticed and that we're also aware of the environment. So I'd simply move in front of the horse, and they're very unlikely to spook in that direction anyway, so you're putting yourself in a safer position. Have a look at whatever it is that you think that they're looking at, and I usually look for movement because that generally attracts the horse's eye. So usually you can see something moving in the distance, and I try and guess what it is that they're actually noticing, that they're seeing. Sometimes I can't see something because our eyesight's not as good as horses' eyesight in terms of like long distance, but I will try and work out what it is that they're looking at, and once I'm sure that it's not a threat, I will release, relax, and show them that I'm not worried about what it is that they're looking at. And generally, they will follow suit with lowering their head, licking and chewing, and letting that tension go as well. So that's a little trick for you. When you do notice that your horse has hit a threshold when they're looking at something in the distance, take a look yourself and then relax and see how your horse responds. Number 3 is allow processing time. And this is something that I continuously have to remind myself to do, because I'm the sort of person that likes to do a lot of things. I like to carry on. I like to be active, and I have to consciously slow myself down and allow my horses the time to process, no matter how long it takes or no matter how long they need to do that. So what I mean by processing is sometimes you'll see a horse get in a state of mind where it kind of looks like they're thinking. Who knows exactly what's going on in this moment, but they're quite still. They're almost like a little bit internal, and it seems like they are just thinking about what's going on. They're having like a little meditation moment almost. They're usually quite still, but they also don't look available in terms of they don't look ready to proceed. So in these moments, I just wait. I just wait for my horses to have that moment. And usually when they come out of it, they either lick and chew, they look at me or come towards me. They might breathe out, they might lower their head, they might have a shake. All of these things showing that they are coming to a more relaxed state of mind and a more ready state of mind. Now, these are also the things I've mentioned are generally known as calming signals, which means that the horse has been in a stressed state and is then releasing that tension. So you know the horse has been a little bit stressed and now they're releasing that. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. Stress, to me, I believe that it's not necessarily a bad thing because learning is stressful. And there are inevitably going to be moments where your horse is a little stressed in training. But I think if you allow that processing time and recognize it and really observe your horse's body language, you can give them that time to come back down from that stress state to a point where they are more ready to continue. Sometimes I get a little greedy and I don't allow enough processing time, and then the tension builds up and I will eventually have to allow them a lot more time to relax. So this, like I said, this is something that I have to remind myself to do regularly anyway, which is just allow that time of processing. And you will see when your horse is ready to do some processing because it'll be evident in their body language. And it's usually after you've done a few repetitions of something, or you're doing something new, or doing something a little bit challenging. And you'll see that the horse hits a moment where they're like, okay, I just need a moment here just to kind of be still. And then I just be still and wait. Often you have to give them more time than you think, right? It can feel like a long time, but if you set a timer, it's usually not that long. Because, generally humans are in a hurry and we want to crack on to the next thing. But I think it's more valuable to allow the horse the time to do this processing because it does pay off in terms of the progress and how the horse feels about the session. Number 4 is let your horse eat. And what I mean by this is, it can be done in a variety of ways, but eating, chewing, swallowing, these are all very natural things that the horse does on a fairly continuous basis when they are in their safe environment. And I believe it can have a calming effect on horses. I remember even before my more horsemanship type days when I was competing, when we were to take horses to shows, the first thing that we would want to do is see that the horse can get their head down and graze because it just helped them be more relaxed. And I feel that if we can incorporate some eating within the session, before, during, and after the session, it can really help create this tone of relaxation. And so there's a number of ways you can do this. I've spoken about having grazing breaks before. And so this is where perhaps in between tasks or in between like mini sessions, if that's what you do with your horse, you just take the horse to an area where they can graze and you just hang out and allow the horse to graze. Or if you're working in a paddock, you can allow your horse to graze in between even smaller tasks. Another way you can get your horse chewing and eating during the session is if you do choose to use positive reinforcement. And if you're using something like chaff or hay pellets or like mini hay cubes, then there's going to be a lot of chewing happening in between repetitions because, in order to receive their reinforcement, they're going to have to chew and swallow. So that's one way to incorporate eating into the session. Another idea is to allow your horse to have a big hay net or a loose biscuit of hay before you start your session. So it could be whilst you're grooming them. It could just be you do your session directly after they have their morning hay or whatever it might be, so that the horse has had a solid amount of time where they've been licking, chewing, eating, swallowing, and really setting that tone for relaxation that naturally occurs from this chewing process. Number 5 is repetition and consistency. So when we do things that are predictable and they are repeated and they are consistent and we are consistent, it helps the horse feel more relaxed. On the other hand, when we are more unpredictable, when we do lots of different things, when we chop and change what we're doing, this can make the horse a little bit potentially more interested if they're bored with more consistency, but it can also make them a little nervous because they never really know exactly what's going to happen. So this predictability helps with the relaxation. And it's not only predictability within the session in terms of what you're working on, but it's predictability in terms of where you're going, who's going to be there, the way you show up, your personality and your attitude and your approach. So these things have got to be consistent and predictable for the horse to feel relaxed. You might also have like a set warm-up routine or some familiar go-to exercises or a routine of exercises that you do repeatedly that kind of becomes an anchor for relaxation because it's familiar, it's something the horse knows. I've found that when I have taken my horses out to new places, when I can do some things that they are familiar with and they really like and enjoy and understand and feel real clarity around, it helps them to relax in the new environment because it brings that sense of familiarity to the foreign environment. So having this consistency, this repetition, and perhaps even a routine of go-to exercises that suit your specific horse can really help with the overall relaxation of a session. Number 6 is go slow. And again, this is hard for me. I've had to really train myself out of wanting to do fast stuff all the time. But so much can be achieved in the walk. And these days, a lot of what I do is done in the walk because you can be more accurate. It can be less stressful for the horse. You can really build the foundations there. And then when you do attempt similar exercises at faster gaits, they become so much easier because your horse has so much clarity and understanding and even like good muscle memory in terms of what to do when it's been trained at the walk. So I think a lot of us really miss the opportunity to refine what we're doing and to get really good responses and elevate our basics when we skip the work at the walk. It reminds me of, there's a period of time during winter where my arena is fairly unusable, especially if we have consecutive days of rain. However, I can still walk in the arena safely, and it kind of forces me to go back to the walk. And even though it's a limitation in terms of I perhaps might be riding and I feel like, oh, what's the point? Because I can't do trot or canter, poor me, first world problems. But it actually, whilst it is a limitation, it's a blessing in disguise because it helps to elevate those things that happen at trot and canter because you put more refinement into the walk. The walk is obviously slower, so you can be a lot more accurate and you can be more detailed and you can get more clarity and understanding in the walk because everything is so much slower. And if you have a look at some of the excellent trainers of this horse world that we have, a lot of them really focus on work at the walk. Anya Barron springs to mind here. She does a lot of work at the walk with the horses, really refining those basic moves that she believes every horse ought to know. And as a result, when she does do things at the trot and canter, she brings that same lightness, clarity, and ease into those faster gaits. One of the things I like to say is start lighter, wait longer. So this comes under the banner of going slow because if you can give your horse a chance to respond to lighter aids by waiting longer for a response, then you are going to have more clear communication and lighter communication. Who doesn't want to have lighter aids with their horse, lighter communication? And this is like a sliding scale in terms of it's a never-ending practice. I'm always working on how light can I make my aids and can I wait a little longer to give my horse a chance to respond before I perhaps escalate that aid, in terms of the aid might be my intention or my body language. So using that as an aid and waiting longer before I might need to apply pressure or some kind of other guidance. This might feel like you're going really slow and initially feel like the horse perhaps isn't taking any notice at all, but over time they will notice. And I think they become more in tune with these lighter cues when you do repeatedly provide them the opportunity to respond to that. But if you just try once or twice and they go, oh, that's not working, and go back to your fast, quick ways, then it's never going to work, right? Another way you can go slower is by focusing on 1% progress. I think a lot of us are guilty of trying to make too much progress within a session and trying to get a lot of things done and then really not getting much done at all. But if you can tell yourself, okay, what would 1% progress look like in this session, and go for that and really focus on that, you and your horse are much more likely to be successful and to develop relaxation, because your expectations might be a little lower, and therefore your horse won't feel that pressure of having to perform, and you yourself won't feel that pressure of having to achieve a really high level in a short amount of time. So you both can be more relaxed about the session. So try going for just 1% progress per session. Number 7 is mutual grooming. And I've got to chuckle to myself a little bit here, because when my husband and I see the horses like mutual grooming each other in the paddock, we call it canoodling, because you know how cute it is, how they're kind of like scratching each other and their little lips are like all tense and wiggling, and it's just so cute. But you can see how kind of happy and relaxed the horses are when they do this canoodling behavior. And I think we can do it with our horses too, in terms of when you're looking to find your horse's itchy spots and you find a really good spot, they try and scratch you back as well. And I don't know the exact science behind it, but I'm sure there's some sort of dopamine release with this mutual grooming when you do find a really good spot. I think there might be some papers and evidence behind with the scratching for this in terms of lowering heart rate, but I just feel like when I can get a little bit of a mutual groom in with my horses, they tend to be more relaxed. And also, it's a way of showing our horses that we are noticing how they feel in a really basic way, because if we can show them, oh, I actually know where your itchy spots are, or, you know, perhaps they might scratch their shoulder or something themselves, and then you go and get that spot for them, you're showing them, oh, hey, I noticed that you were itchy here. Can I get it for you? And then I think the horse goes, oh, wow, they actually notice how I'm feeling. How cool is that? So they feel more comfortable in your presence. Number 8 is undemanding time. And this is something I've spoken about a lot because I think it is so important. And again, a reminder to myself to incorporate more of this within my sessions with the horses and outside of sessions too. Because when we build relationships with other species, like our own species with humans, we're not constantly doing things with the people that we love, right? We might just be relaxing with them. We might just be sitting with them. We might just be watching a TV show or eating together. We're not always training together, right? We're not always asking each other to do stuff. And it's not nice being around someone that's constantly pestering you to do things. So I think it's important to spend undemanding time with our horses to show them that, like, hey, we can just hang out and be friends and that's all good by me. Think about our other pets like dogs and cats. Generally, most of the time we spend with them, we're not training them. And this builds up this association of kind of neutrality around each other where, you know, there's no transaction, there's no exchange of treats, there's no pressure, there's no training, right? We can just hang out together. And I think it's important to do this with the horses so that you can also provide that same neutral kind of feeling. By doing undemanding time, either within your session, outside of your session, before and after your session, or a combination of all of those things, it also can give you some nice time to reflect in terms of what you want to achieve or what you have just been working on, and help you come up with your next plan in terms of what you'd like to do. So for those of you who think, I just don't have time to do undemanding time, which probably means you do need to do it more, you can see it as useful time to reflect on what you've done and make improvements and plan for what you'd like to do next. So it doesn't have to feel like wasted time. You can also make your undemanding time a grazing break or a mutual grooming session. You don't have to do completely nothing in that time if you're the sort of person who just can't sit still. But in saying that, again, if you're that sort of person, then perhaps you need more practice at that. The 9th way to help you and your horse have a more relaxed session is to talk to your horse. I remember when in my early days of learning horsemanship, I was told by some instructors, and well-meaning instructors, I'm sure, that I should talk less to my horses. And I think really what they were trying to do is help me become more aware of my body and what my body was saying, which is fair enough. But these days, I talk to my horses a lot. I feel that, obviously the horses can't understand exactly what we're saying. They don't understand English, but I believe that they can feel the intention behind the words. And I think it's easier for humans to express themselves through words, and that can have like an effect on the body as well. So the way we are talking affects our body, and vice versa. So I will tell my horses how much I love them and how amazing they are, and I really let my natural joy kind of come through the tone in my voice when I am talking to them, because I really think they can feel that, especially when they're on the right track towards what it is that I'm working on. And I start saying, yes, good, that's so nice. They can really feel that, and I feel them get excited too, and that brings us all joy. And I think just by smiling, our horses, well, that can have an effect on our physiology, but I think our horses can feel that too. And I know that there's been some research around, I think it was just showing photos of people to horses where some were smiling and some were like a neutral or frowning face, and the horses, I can't remember exactly how the study went, but the horses preferred the smiling people. So I really think horses like happy people. So if you can show your horse appreciation, if you can smile more, if you can talk to your horse in a loving way, I really think that helps with the relaxation. It's not the only thing that's going to help. Like, let's say your horse is completely over threshold and you've got no groundwork communication with them. Talking to them probably not going to have a huge effect, or if any, a very minimal effect. But it is just one of those little things that can make a big difference if you also have some of those other things in place that are more like hands-on type skills. The other way I would talk to my horses is I tell my horses my plan. So this just really, I'm just talking to myself because I'm just gathering my thoughts and what I hope to achieve in the session, but who knows if the horses can feel that too, but I like to think that they can maybe, and it just helps to set the tone for the session. Number 10 is pick a nice day. And I know this might seem like a bit of a cop-out for some people, but I think it's totally fine if you have become, or you are, a fair weather horse person, in that you only really like doing stuff with your horses when it's nice weather. This isn't always practical. I get it that, let's say you're a competitive rider, there are going to be days where it's windy or raining or whatever that you have to ride your horse. But if you are a leisure rider, you don't have to ride your horse or play with your horse when it's bucketing down with rain or when it's horrible outside. Granted, I might still do that because I'm kind of obsessed and just love horse time regardless of the weather most of the time. But there have definitely been days where I'm like, it is so windy and I just cannot be bothered. That is totally okay, especially if you feel like the session is not going to be productive anyway in this weather. Let's face it, we all feel a little frustrated in the wind. I think this especially applies for young horses or inexperienced and nervous riders, it's smart to pick and choose your days in terms of weather. Like, it wouldn't be wise to do cantering on a young, immature horse when the weather is not on your side, because you're not really setting yourself up for success. And sure, again, this might seem like a cop-out, yes, at some point you want to be able to do that in that kind of weather. But also, there are no rules, you actually don't have to. So it's totally your choice for you to do a session or not, depending on the weather. Or you might just alter your session. Let's say you had planned to ride, but the weather wasn't really on your side. The horses are a little bit on edge. You might just do groundwork that day. And you know what? That is perfectly fine. And you're probably both going to be more relaxed without that pressure of, oh, I have to ride because there's this unwritten rule that everyone should be able to ride in bad weather. I think that everyone feels better when the sun is shining and it's calm, and it's totally fine for you to capitalize on those days and make your horse time during nice weather. I mean, most people would probably say that they have a more relaxed horse on a nicer weather day. It's totally okay to be a fair weather horse person. Number 11 is brain breaks, and I've kind of touched on this with grazing breaks and a little bit of undemanding time as well. There's a little bit of crossover here, but I like using the word brain breaks because it reminds me of, I think it's either primary school or early learning teachers that talk about brain breaks for kids. We know that kids have a really short attention span and can only absorb so much. And I feel horses are the same, especially when they're learning something new. And I've really found this with working with young horses, doing groundwork in that under 4 kind of age bracket, where they're just curious about humans and what we're asking them to do, and then suddenly we're boring. That is the moment to do, or even before they feel that, is to do a brain break. And that might be a grazing break. It might just be a walk around the area or away from the area. It might be a hay net break where you just let them have some hay for a bit, or it might just be some undemanding time where you're just standing there and chilling out, because it kind of helps the horse to refresh. It kind of helps you have a few mini sessions within your session rather than it feeling like one long drawn out session. So you can generally make more progress that way because it feels like you're getting more sessions within a session. I hope that makes sense. But I do think it's really important to give horses, especially young horses, but really all horses, these brain breaks where you're either grazing, walking, or just doing nothing. And lastly, number 12 is actively releasing tension yourself. So I find it funny when I sometimes watch back on the Pivo footage that I take of myself with the horses, sometimes just purely to try and improve my own horsemanship by reflecting on what I'm doing, that I will do some things like blowing out, relaxing my jaw and licking and chewing and yawning, stretching, that kind of thing, to kind of show my horse I'm relaxed, I'm all good. When I say blow out, it's how the horses blow out. But I do this so that I'm bringing conscious awareness to how my body is feeling too. And if I consciously do these things, it does have an effect on how relaxed my body is. Some people might choose to meditate. I have a love-hate relationship with meditation. I need to get better at it. Some people are really into it and they might be able to meditate with their horses. I have certainly experimented with that, but that might be a way that you can actively release tension yourself when you're around your horse. Other people might need to do something more active, and they might need to, before they even see their horse, they might need to do a little run or do some jumping jacks or whatever it is to kind of release that tension through movement. It's whatever works for you, but can you be aware of the tension that you hold in your body, and can you actively release it so that you're able to show your horse through your body language that, hey, I'm chill, you don't need to worry, you can be chill too. Because I think that when you become really in tune with your horse and you have that level of connection, you do start to mirror each other's bodies a little bit. So you can help your horse be more relaxed by being more relaxed in your body too. I'm not sure how I missed this one, but I did after recording the 12 ways to have a more relaxed session with your horse. I realized there was one that I missed and I really would like to share with you because it is one that I use a lot myself and that really has a big impact on my mood and I believe my horse's mood and as a result how relaxed the session is, and that is using music. So I absolutely love listening to music during my horse time. It's got to be the right kind of playlist, the right kind of vibe though, and that can change depending on what sort of session I'm wanting to have, but I really like kind of relaxing, almost like modern meditation type music. Sometimes like country music's nice to listen to. Anything that's kind of slow, easygoing, calming music that just really helps me get into a good frame of mind. And we know this works in other areas. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever done this, but before, back in the day when I was a teenager and young adult, when I would go to town and dance and that sort of thing, I would listen to music that would like pump me up whilst I was getting ready, like dance music, and it would just really get me kind of in the mood to go out. I really feel like we can use music in a way to get us in the right kind of mood and state of mind for our session. And I also think it has an impact on the horses too, because I don't know, I just think music has this incredible ability to influence kind of any species. I'm not sure if they've done any research around this, but I'm sure that there's probably like a reciprocal effect in that the music helps me feel more relaxed and therefore my horses are more relaxed. But maybe it works the other way around as well. Maybe the music directly impacts the horse too and helps them to feel more relaxed. And then that has a more relaxing effect on me. I don't know. But what I'm trying to say is I think that utilizing music is a fantastic tool to help you have more relaxation within a session with your horse. So there you have it. There are 12 ways to have a more relaxed session with your horse. I'm sure I've probably missed some really obvious ones. So if you have anything to add, then please let me know on social media. I'll put a post up about this podcast. You can comment there. I'm on Instagram at Amalia_horses and on Facebook at Amalia Dempsey Horsemanship. So I'd love to hear from you. And as always, I'd love to hear if this episode has helped you in any way. You can do that by reaching out to me on any of those social media platforms. Please share the podcast on social media too. The more that this podcast reaches other people, hopefully the bigger positive impact it will have on the horse world. And as always, if you love the podcast, I'd really appreciate a rating and review. It helps show the podcast to more potential listeners. So I would love if you could do that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's episode and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for tuning in to the Horsemanship Breakthroughs Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow the show so you never miss an update. I'd truly appreciate if you could leave a rating and review or share this episode on social media. It helps more listeners discover the podcast and hopefully has a positive impact on the horse world. For more resources on horsemanship and rider exercise, visit amaliadempsey.com. Thanks again for listening. Have a great day and I'll catch you next time.